The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council started in total chaos. Ambassador Krell of the Voxian Collective hit the table hard with 3 of his 4 hands. His voice came through the translator device with worry and fear. It has been 47 days since we last heard anything from the humans. No messages about trade, no complaints about mining rights, no diplomatic talks, nothing at all. Counselor Yara from the Luminite people adjusted her crystal sensors. Her body was made of light and she spoke by changing colors. The translator turned her light patterns into words that everyone could understand. Maybe their communication systems broke down. Humans always talk so much. Perhaps something happened to their relay stations. Commander Thorax of the Kron Defense Fleet made a low growling sound. His body was covered in thick armor plates that clicked when he moved. We already checked everything. Every relay station. Every beacon. Every emergency signal that humans ever put in space. They all work fine. The equipment is perfect. But nobody is using any of it. The huge council room could hold representatives from more than 300 different species. Right now it felt small and tight. Everyone felt uncomfortable. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 200 years. That was a short time, but in those 2 centuries they had become impossible to ignore. Humans were everywhere in the galaxy. Human traders worked in every market and trading post. Human explorers went to dangerous places that other species stayed away from. Human diplomats talked and talked and talked about everything. They had opinions on resource sharing, trade laws, and even deep questions about what it means to be alive and conscious. They gave their views on things that had nothing to do with them, and now, without any warning, they were completely silent. Admiral Zhen of the Keltar hierarchy looked at his electronic notepad. His long fingers moved quickly across the screen. I checked all the records. The last time we heard from any human was Captain Greg Hayes. He commanded a merchant ship called Spirit of Boston. He was arguing with a Voxian customs officer about taxes on farm products. The conversation ended normally. Then we heard nothing more. What about their colonies? Counselor Yara asked. Her light body flickered with concern. The human settlements on New Terra, Mars Colony, the space stations around Jupiter? Someone must have visited them. Commander Thorax made a holographic display appear in the middle of the room. It showed dozens of human worlds and space stations. Each one had a status light. Every single light was red. We sent scout ships to check. The colonies are still there. Nothing looks damaged. No signs of fighting. No evidence of disease or disaster. The stations still work. Life support systems are running. But every single human settlement we visited is empty. They did not leave in a hurry. They simply are not there anymore. It looks like the entire species decided to leave at the same time and cleaned everything up before going. A wave of worried sounds moved through the room. Different species made different noises of concern. Some species had actually felt relieved when humans stopped talking. Humans were tiring to deal with. They asked too many questions. They challenged old rules and traditions. But this was different. This felt wrong and scary. Where could an entire species go? Ambassador Krell demanded. His voice was loud with frustration. They had colonies on 47 different worlds. They had stations in 100 star systems. Billions of people. You cannot hide that many living beings. Admiral Zhen spoke quietly, unless they did not want to be found. The room became completely silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The idea hung in the air like a heavy weight pressing down on them. Finally, Elder Surak spoke. She was from a species called the Oldest. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. Her people had guided the galactic community for more than 10,000 years. She had seen many civilizations rise and fall during her long life. There is something we must think about carefully. What if humanity did not disappear? What if they simply stopped talking to us? Why would they do that? Someone asked from the back of the room. Elder Surax looked around the room with her ancient eyes. Those eyes had seen thousands of years of history, perhaps because they decided we were not worth talking to anymore. The suggestion made everyone deeply uncomfortable. For 200 years, the galactic community had thought of humans as the new species, the young ones who were still learning how things worked, the loud neighbors who talked too much and asked too many questions. Most species had tolerated humans but also looked down on them a little bit. But what if that had been wrong? What if humans had been judging them the whole time? Ambassador Krell shook his head. All 4 of his hands moved in gestures of denial. That makes no sense. Humans needed us. They learned faster than light travel from studying our technology. They built their colonies using our construction methods. They joined our trade networks, did they? Elder Surax asked softly. Or did they simply let us believe that? The question created an uncomfortable silence. Commander Thorax broke it with another growl. We need answers. I propose we send investigation teams to every human location. We need to find out what happened. More importantly, we need to find out if this represents a threat to galactic security. A threat? Counselor Yara asked. How could humans disappearing be a threat? Admiral Zen stood up. His face showed the concern he felt. Think about what this means. An entire species, spread across dozens of worlds and hundreds of stations, all left at the same time. They did it without anyone noticing. They did it without leaving any trace of how they did it. That level of coordination, that level of technology. If humans can do that, what else can they do? The implication was clear and frightening. If humanity could move billions of people without anyone seeing how they did it, they possessed technology far beyond what they had shown. And if they had been hiding that technology, what else had they been hiding? The vote was quick. Investigation teams would be formed immediately. Every human site would be examined. Every piece of evidence would be collected and studied. The Galactic Council needed to know what happened to humanity. But as the meeting ended and the various representatives left to return to their ships, many of them felt a new emotion. For 200 years they had tolerated humanity. Now they realized they might have reason to fear them, because something that can disappear completely might also be able to return, and when it did return, it might not be friendly. Elder Surax remained in her seat long after everyone else had gone. She stared at the empty council chamber and thought about the old legends. Stories from before the current galactic order. Tales of a powerful species that had vanished long ago. She had always thought those stories were just myths. Old tales told to young ones. But now she wondered, what if the legends were true? What if humanity was not a new species at all? What if they were something far older returning after a long absence? The thought made her feel cold despite the warm temperature of the chamber. If humanity was that old, if they possessed that much power, then their sudden silence was not a mystery to be solved. It was a warning to be heeded. The question was whether the galactic community would understand the warning in time. Lieutenant Kyle Brooks walked through the empty hallways of New Terra's main colonial building. His boots made loud, echoing sounds on the clean floor. Behind him, Agent Nina Cross held up a scanning device and pointed it at the walls. Nothing here. No signs of weapons being used. No chemical traces of any fight or struggle. Just emptiness. Kyle had been part of the investigation team for 3 weeks. He had visited human sites across 5 different sectors of space. Every single location told the same strange story. The humans had not run away in fear. Nobody had attacked them. They had simply stopped being there. It was like they had stepped out of normal reality. In the living areas, he found apartments with personal things still in their places. Family pictures hung on walls. Books sat on shelves. In some kitchens, he even found half-prepared meals. Automatic preservation fields had turned on to keep the food from spoiling. They left in the middle of their normal lives, Kyle said quietly. Nina looked at a computer terminal and made a surprised sound. Not exactly. Look at this. Every computer terminal on this entire colony was used 47 days ago. All of them were accessed within 30 minutes of each other, and they all opened the same file. What file? That is the strange part. The file does not exist anymore. It was deleted from every single database at the same time. Whatever the humans read, they made sure nobody else could see it. Kyle felt a chill run through his body. He had worked with humans before. He knew how they behaved. They were not a species that agreed on everything. They argued constantly about almost every topic. Getting billions of humans to all do the same thing at the same time should have been impossible. Yet somehow, they had all decided to leave at exactly the same moment. His communication device made a beeping sound. It was Director Sean Cole calling from headquarters. Brooks, we found something important. Get back to your ship right now. Half an hour later, Kyle and Nina stood in the meeting room of their investigation ship. Director Cole looked serious as he showed them a holographic image of a small data storage device. This was found at a human listening post near the edge of the frontier territories. It has a partial copy of the file that every human looked at before they disappeared. What does it say? Kyle asked. Cole paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. It is a message. From humans to other humans. It says they have been watching. They have been listening. They know what we are. It is time to go home. Go home? Nina repeated, confused. But Earth is empty too. We checked the human homeworld. Nobody is there. Cole nodded slowly. That is exactly the question. Where is home for humanity? Kyle read the message again on his own screen. The words were strange. They sounded very calm and businesslike, not panicked or urgent. The person who wrote it seemed to know that every human who read it would understand immediately what it meant. There is more, Cole continued. We analyzed where the message came from. It was sent from a location that should not be possible. What do you mean? The coordinates show that the message came from inside a region of space that is marked as uninhabitable. Very high radiation levels. Dangerous gravitational forces. Even human ships, which can handle more extreme conditions than most other species, cannot survive in that area. Nina frowned and thought hard. Unless they developed technology that we did not know about. Exactly, Cole agreed. Which brings us to our real problem. If humanity has been secretly developing advanced technology, if they planned this departure for a long time, then what else have they been hiding from us? And why did they choose to leave now? What did they mean when they said they have been watching? The room felt suddenly cold. For 200 years, humanity had seemed like the noisy newcomers, the young species that everyone had to tolerate. But what if that had all been an act? What if humans had been watching and studying the galaxy just as carefully as someone else had been watching them? Kyle spoke slowly, thinking through his words. Sir, when humans first made contact with us, they said they had only recently invented faster-than-light travel. But what if that was a lie? What if they had been traveling through space much longer than they told us? Cole nodded with a grim expression. That is exactly what the Council is afraid of. They are starting to wonder if humanity was ever as young and primitive as they claimed to be. Nina walked over to the window and looked out at the stars. If that is true, if humans have been lying about who they are for 200 years, then we never really knew them at all. Everything we thought we understood about humanity could be wrong. Kyle joined her at the window. We treated them like children, like students who needed to learn from us. But what if they were the teachers all along? What if they were testing us? The idea was deeply disturbing. Every interaction with humans over 2 centuries might have been carefully planned. Every argument, every negotiation, every seemingly random encounter could have been part of some larger plan that nobody else understood. Cole brought up another display. We found something else. There are old scanner records from before humans officially made contact with us. Very faint energy signatures that match human technology. These signatures were detected in multiple star systems. Some of them are hundreds of years old. Hundreds of years? Nina turned away from the window. That would mean humans were traveling through space long before they told us they invented the technology. Yes. And it would mean their entire story about being new to space travel was completely false. Kyle felt his mind racing with possibilities. Every fact he thought he knew about humanity was suddenly questionable. If they had lied about when they started traveling through space, what else had they lied about? Their history, their culture, their intentions? Why would they do it? He asked. Why pretend to be less advanced than they really were? What did they gain from it? Cole shook his head. That is the question everyone is asking. Maybe they wanted to observe us without us being suspicious. Maybe they were looking for something, or maybe they were waiting for something to happen. And now that thing has happened, Nina said quietly. Whatever they were waiting for, it finally came. That is why they left. The 3 of them stood in silence, each thinking about the implications. Somewhere out in space, humanity was hiding, and they had taken great care to make sure nobody could follow them or find out where they went. Cole looked at both of them seriously. Keep investigating. Visit every human site you can reach. Look for any clue about where they went or why they left. The Council needs answers. because right now the entire galaxy is afraid of what humanity might do next. As Kyle and Nina left the meeting room to return to their investigation, Kyle could not stop thinking about the message. They know what we are. Those 5 words bothered him more than anything else. They suggested that whoever sent the message knew something important about humanity, something that made them different from what everyone else believed, and if humans knew what they really were, and decided they needed to hide because of it, then what did that say about the truth? What could be so important, so dangerous, that an entire species would choose to vanish rather than let others discover it? The answer, Kyle feared, might be something the galaxy was not ready to learn. Archivist Jenna Quinn had spent her entire career working in the Galactic Historical Archives. It was a huge library that held knowledge about thousands of species over millions of years. She was proud of knowing where every piece of information was stored. But as she searched deeper into the human files, she began to realize how little anyone actually knew about humanity's past. She connected to the emergency committee through a holographic communication system and began her report. The official human records start 203 years ago. That is when their first diplomatic ship made contact with a Lumini exploration vessel near their home star system. But there are problems with their records. Ambassador Krell leaned forward in his seat, interested. What kind of problems? Historical references that do not match with their supposed level of technology. For example, human books and stories from before they made contact with us mention ideas and technologies that should have been impossible for them at that time. Artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, even theories about faster-than-light travel. Elder Surak studied the information with her ancient eyes. Are you saying their science fiction was not fiction at all? I'm saying that humans may have been much more advanced than they told us. But there is something else. I found gaps in their historical records. What do you mean by gaps? Missing time periods in the histories they gave us, centuries where their records are unclear or contradictory. When I compared their records with our own long-range sensor data, I found something disturbing. There are traces of human technology in sectors of space they claimed never to have visited. Commander Thorax made a growling sound. Are these traces old or recent? That is the problem. The scientific tests suggest some of these traces are thousands of years old. They existed long before humans made contact with us. But that should be impossible, unless something we believe is wrong. Admiral Zhen finished her thought. Unless humanity has been traveling through space far longer than they admitted. Which means their entire story about recently inventing faster-than-light travel was a lie. Jenna brought up another file on the holographic display. I also found something interesting in our first contact records. This is a communication from the very first time we met humans. Captain Peter Grant of the human ship Unity. I want you to listen carefully to his exact words. She played an audio recording. A human voice spoke, sounding warm and friendly. He spoke perfect galactic standard language. Greetings to the Lumine Confederacy. This is Captain Peter Grant of the human vessel Unity. We come in peace and look forward to rejoining the galactic community. Counselor Yara's light body flickered with confusion. Rejoining? We always thought that was a mistake in translation. So did everyone else. But now I am not sure it was a mistake. What if humans were part of the galactic community before? A long time ago, before our current records even started. Elder Surax was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke and her voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of life. There are legends, old stories passed down among the oldest species in the galaxy. Tales of an ancient civilization that disappeared before our current galactic order was established. A species that could change reality itself. The legends called them the Forerunners. Krell objected immediately. Legends are not proof. They are just stories. Elder Surax agreed with a nod. That is true. But what if the legends were based on real events? What if humans are the descendants of these Forerunners? What if they left the galaxy long ago, only to return disguised as a primitive species so they could watch us? Jenna felt cold fear run through her body. That would explain everything. The gaps in their history. The old technology traces. Why they seemed to learn so quickly about galactic society. They were not learning at all. They were remembering things they already knew. Admiral Zhen spoke quietly. And now they have decided to stop pretending. The committee members sat in shocked silence. Finally, Commander Thorax spoke. If this is true, we need to know why they left the first time. And more importantly, We need to know why they came back. Because if humanity is powerful enough to hide their true nature for 2 centuries, powerful enough to move billions of people in one night without anyone seeing how they did it, then what happens if they decide we are a threat to them? The question hung in the air. Nobody wanted to think about the answer. If humanity possessed technology and power far beyond what any other species had, and if they had been hiding that power while watching everyone else, then the entire galactic community was at their mercy. Jenna continued her report. I found more evidence. There are references in ancient texts from several old species. They mention a powerful civilization that helped guide younger species. But then this civilization suddenly withdrew. The texts say they left because they discovered something terrible, something that scared them so much they had to hide. What could scare a species powerful enough to manipulate reality? Counselor Yara asked. That is what worries me, Jenna said. The texts are not clear about what they found. But they all agree on one thing. The Forerunners left to protect both themselves and the younger species. They thought their presence put everyone in danger. Elder Surex closed her eyes, thinking deeply. If humanity is connected to the Forerunners and they have now chosen to leave again, perhaps they discovered the same danger. Perhaps whatever scared them away the first time has returned. The implications of that thought made everyone uncomfortable. If something existed that could frighten humanity into hiding, something that made them abandon their colonies and stations, then that thing might be a threat to the entire galaxy. Ambassador Krell stood up, all 4 of his arms moving with agitation. Then we need to find them. We need to make them tell us what they know. If there is a threat coming, we deserve to know about it. How do you find someone who does not want to be found? Admiral Jean asked. Someone who has technology beyond our understanding? They vanished completely. They left no trail. Even if we wanted to follow them, we would not know where to start. Jenna had been thinking about this problem. There might be a way. The ancient texts mention that the Forerunners did not completely cut off contact. They left behind archives, libraries of knowledge hidden in remote locations. If we could find one of these archives, we might learn the truth about what they feared. Do you know where these archives might be? Elder Surax asked. The texts give clues. Locations described in symbolic language. I have been trying to translate them. Some of the descriptions match places in our current star charts, places that are considered dangerous or forbidden. Commander Thorax nodded with determination. Then we send expeditions to these locations. We search for these archives. If humanity will not tell us what is happening, we will find out ourselves. The committee agreed. Exploration teams would be assembled. They would search for the hidden archives of the Forerunners. They would try to learn the secrets that humanity was keeping. But as the meeting ended, Jenna could not shake a feeling of worry. If humanity had hidden these archives in dangerous locations, they probably had good reasons. And if the knowledge in those archives was dangerous enough to make an advanced civilization flee, then perhaps some secrets were meant to stay hidden. She thought about the message that had been found at the human listening post. They know what we are. It is time to go home. Those words suggested that humanity had learned something about themselves. Something important enough to make them leave everything behind. What if the galactic community learned that same truth? Would they also choose to run and hide? Or would they stay and face whatever was coming? Jenna did not know the answer. But she knew that soon everyone would have to make that choice. Because if humanity had fled from something, that something would not stay away forever. And when it arrived, the galaxy would finally understand why humanity had stopped talking. Captain Lisa Morgan commanded a deep space exploration ship called Horizon. Her mission was simple: patrol the frontier areas of known space and investigate anything unusual. But what she found floating in the darkness of space was far from simple. Captain, her sensor officer called out suddenly, I'm detecting a huge energy signature. It just appeared from nowhere. Lisa moved quickly to the sensor station. Her eyes went wide when she saw the readings on the screen. Whatever it was enormous, as big as a small moon, and it was sending out a broadcast signal. The signal is audio only, ma'am. It is in galactic standard language. Play it. A voice filled the bridge of the ship. It was human. Male. The voice sounded calm and ordinary, as if the speaker was discussing something simple rather than appearing from nowhere at the edge of space. Attention, Galactic Council. This is Administrator Jack Morrison of the Human Collective. We apologize for leaving so suddenly and for the confusion it has caused. We have been watching your investigation with interest. Your archivist Jenna Quinn is very thorough. She deserves praise for her work. Lisa felt her blood turn cold. They had been watching. The entire time. Every step of the investigation, every discovery, every theory. Humans had been observing it all. Keep recording everything, she ordered her crew. The voice continued speaking. Your theories are partly correct. We are indeed older than we claimed. Much older. We have been part of this galaxy for a very long time. But we left, as Elder Surax correctly guessed, because we had to. We discovered something. Something that forced us to leave galactic civilization and hide our true nature. There was a pause. The speaker seemed to be choosing his words carefully. 200 years ago, we decided to return. Not as we were, but disguised. We made ourselves appear weak and primitive. We acted like a young species just discovering the stars. We wanted to see if you had grown. If you had learned. If you were ready. Ready for what? Lisa whispered to herself, though she knew the voice could not hear her. As if answering her question, the voice went on. Ready for what is coming. We left the galaxy originally because we detected them. The Devourers, beings from beyond normal space that consume entire civilizations. They move through the galaxy in cycles that span millions of years. The last time they came, we fought them. And we lost. We almost lost everything. We survived only by hiding, by making ourselves small and quiet. We hoped they would pass us by without noticing us. Lisa gripped the edge of the control panel. Her hands were shaking. The entire bridge crew was silent, listening to every word. The voice continued. We returned to see if the younger species could stand against them. We watched you develop and grow. We watched you form alliances. We pretended to be weak and argumentative and chaotic. We wanted to see if you would help us despite our flaws. If you would look beyond surface differences and form true unity. The voice paused again. When it resumed, there was clear sadness in it. You failed the test. Not completely, but enough. The Council spends more time arguing over trade routes than preparing for real threats. Species hoard technology instead of sharing it. You look at differences as problems rather than strengths. You are not ready. And the Devourers are coming back. Lisa felt like the floor had dropped away beneath her. Everything she thought she understood about the galaxy was wrong. Humanity had not been the young species learning from older ones. They had been the teachers testing their students. And the students had failed. We detected their approach 70 days ago. That is why we sent the message to our people. That is why we withdrew. We are preparing now, gathering our strength. We will fight them again as we did before, but this time we will fight alone because you are not ready to stand beside us. How long? Lisa asked out loud, though she knew the message was one way. How long until they arrive? The voice seemed to answer her. The Devourers will reach the outer edge of the galaxy in approximately 30 years by Galactic Standard Time. They will consume everything in their path. We are giving you this warning as a courtesy. We do not share this to frighten you, but to give you a choice. You can prepare. You can unite. You can learn to look past your differences and work together, or you can continue as you are and face extinction. Lisa could barely breathe. 30 years. The galaxy had 30 years to prepare for something that had defeated humanity at the height of their power. As for humanity, we are returning to the place we have hidden for thousands of years. The place beyond your sensors, beyond your reach. We will prepare for war, and when the Devourers come, we will do what we have always done. We will fight. Even if we fight alone. The transmission ended. The bridge fell into complete silence. Lisa stared at the view screen, watching as the massive energy signature began to fade away. Track it, she ordered. I want to know where it is going. The sensor officer worked frantically at his controls. Captain, I am trying, but it is not moving in normal space. It is moving up. There is no up in space. It is moving into higher dimensions. My sensors show spatial distortions that match movement between dimensions. Captain, they are not going to another part of the galaxy. They are going to another dimension entirely. Lisa watched as the signal disappeared completely. Empty space was all that remained where moments before a moon-sized object had existed. Humanity had not just left. They had left reality itself. Send everything we recorded to the Council. Every word, every sensor reading. Tell them to meet immediately, because humanity just told us we have 30 years to save ourselves. As her crew rushed to carry out her orders, Lisa sat down in her command chair. Her mind was racing. For 200 years, the galactic community had thought they were the advanced ones, the civilized ones, the ones who had everything figured out. They had looked at humans as the messy newcomers who argued too much and did not understand how things worked. But humans had understood perfectly. They had been watching, judging, testing, and they had found the galaxy wanting. The worst part was that they were probably right. Lisa thought about all the council meetings she had heard about, all the endless arguments over minor issues, all the time species refused to cooperate because of old grudges or pride, all the technology that was kept secret rather than shared. Humanity had pretended to be just as petty and argumentative. But their arguments had always been about ideas and principles, about finding better ways to do things. The galactic community argued about who got what, who had been wronged in the past, who deserved more respect, and now something was coming. Something so terrible that humanity had fought it once and barely survived. Something that made them hide for thousands of years. And they were preparing to face it again alone because they did not believe anyone else could help. Lisa made a decision. When she reported to the council, she would not just relay the message. She would tell them the truth. That humanity was right. That the galaxy was not ready. But that did not mean they could not become ready. 30 years was not a lot of time. But it was enough. Enough to change. Enough to grow. Enough to prove that humanity had been wrong to give up on them. She looked out at the stars and thought about the devourers. Whatever they were, wherever they came from, they were coming. And when they arrived, they would find not a divided galaxy of squabbling species, but a united force ready to fight. Or at least, that was what she hoped. Because the alternative, facing extinction because nobody could work together, was too horrible to consider. Humanity had stopped talking to them. But in their silence, they had delivered the most important message of all. A warning, a challenge, and maybe, just maybe, a last chance to prove themselves worthy. The question was whether the galaxy would listen. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. It had never been so quiet either. Every species in the known galaxy had sent representatives, from the most powerful empires to the smallest colony worlds. The holographic projection of Administrator Jack Morrison's message played on a loop above the central platform. When it finished, no one spoke for a full minute. Finally, Ambassador Krell found his voice. His four hands moved with agitation as he spoke. 30 years. They give us 30 years and expect us to unite when we have spent centuries divided? Elder Surak spoke quietly from her seat. They do not expect us to unite. They think we will fail. That is why they left. They believe we are not capable of working together. Admiral Jen's voice was heavy with resignation. And perhaps they are right. We spent 2 centuries watching humans argue among themselves. We thought them chaotic and primitive. But their arguments were about ideas and principles, about finding better solutions. Meanwhile, we argued about borders and resources and who deserved more respect. They were testing us, and we failed to see it. Counselor Yara's light body pulsed with agitation. So what do we do? Surrender? Wait for these devourers to consume us? A new voice spoke up. We proved them wrong. Everyone turned to see Captain Lisa Morgan stepping forward. She was not a council member. She had no official right to speak here. But no one stopped her. Humanity tested us, we failed. But that does not mean we cannot learn from our mistakes. We have 30 years. 30 years to become the unified force they hoped we could be. 30 years to prepare for a threat that even humanity fears. And when the devourers come, we do not face them divided. We face them together. Commander Thorax challenged her immediately. With what? We do not even know what these entities are. How do you fight something that exists beyond normal space? Lisa spoke firmly. We learn. Humanity hid for thousands of years, but they left traces behind. Archivist Quinn found them. We study those traces. We try to understand the technology. We combine the knowledge of every species in this chamber. The Lumini understand energy manipulation better than anyone. The Kron know warfare. The Voxians are experts at coordination. My own people are good at adapting to new situations. Together, we might stand a chance. Elder Surax rose from her seat. Her ancient body seemed taller somehow. The captain is right. Humanity expected us to fail because we have always chosen division over unity. Every challenge we faced, we met with rivalry instead of cooperation. But we are not the same species we were 200 years ago. Humanity changed us even if we did not realize it. They showed us what persistence looks like, what determination means, What it costs to stand for principles even when easier paths exist. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from hundreds of different worlds. Let me ask you a question. What would humanity do in our position? Ambassador Krell laughed, but it was a bitter sound. They would argue. Elder Surax nodded. Yes, they would argue about the best approach, debate strategies, disagree on methods. And then after all the arguing, they would do something we have never truly done. They would choose. Not out of fear. Not out of obligation. But because it was the right thing to do. And once they chose, they would commit completely. Admiral Jen stepped forward. I have spent 30 years in the military. I know what it takes to coordinate multiple species in combat operations. It is nearly impossible. But humans managed to make it look easy when they served alongside us. They had a saying, no one gets left behind. They applied it to everyone, not just their own kind. He turned to face the full assembly. I propose we form a united defense initiative. Every species contributes according to their strengths. We share all technology, all research, all resources. No secrets, no advantages kept hidden. We become one fleet, one people with one purpose. Survival. Someone objected from the crowd. That would require species to give up sovereignty, to trust ancient enemies. Admiral Jen agreed calmly. Yes, it would require exactly that. The question is whether we value our pride more than our survival. The chamber erupted into debate. Voices in hundreds of languages filled the air, but Lisa noticed something different this time. The arguments were not about who deserved what. They were about how to make unity work, about logistics and coordination, about practical problems and solutions. They were arguing like humans used to argue. Hours passed. Countless speeches were made. Negotiations happened in small groups and large. Finally, the vote came. It was not unanimous. Some species refused to join, but it was enough. The United Defense Initiative was formed. As the delegates began to leave, making plans to return to their homeworlds and begin preparations, Elder Surax approached Lisa. Do you think we can do this, Captain? Do you think we can become what humanity hoped for? Lisa looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, in a dimension beyond their reach, humanity was preparing for war, preparing to face an enemy that terrified even them.
And they plan to do it alone, I do not know.
But I know we have to try, because maybe that is the real test. Not whether we succeed, but whether we refuse to give up. Elder Surax nodded slowly. And when the time comes, when the Devourers arrive, what if humanity does not return to help us? Lisa smiled. Then we send them a message. The same kind they sent us. We show them that we learned, that we grew, that we became worthy of standing beside them. And if they still will not come, then we fight anyway, because that is what they would do. Perhaps we failed humanity's test, Elder Surax said quietly, but we do not have to fail our own. As Lisa left the chamber, she thought about the last part of the human message, the part most people had overlooked. Morrison had said they would fight alone, but he had not said they expected to win alone. Perhaps that was the real message. Perhaps humanity was not abandoning the galaxy. Perhaps they were giving everyone else time to become worthy allies. 30 years. It was not a lot of time to prepare for the end of everything. But as Lisa looked at delegates from 100 different species, all finally working together, all finally choosing unity over division, she felt something she had not expected to feel. Hope. The galaxy had been silent about humanity for 47 days, but in that silence something had changed. The question was no longer where humanity went. The question was who the galaxy would become in their absence. And when the Devourers finally arrived, when the ultimate test came, they would find not a divided collection of arguing species, but a united front, a galaxy that learned the hard way what humanity had been trying to teach them all along. That some fights are worth having, that unity is stronger than pride, and that sometimes the greatest act of faith is believing in those who believe in you. Over the following weeks, the United Defense Initiative began its work. Research teams from different species started sharing their knowledge. Military forces began training together. Old rivalries were set aside. It was not easy. There were still arguments and disagreements, but now those arguments led to solutions instead of stalemates. Lisa was appointed as one of the coordinators. She worked with species she had never even met before. She learned about technology she had never imagined, and slowly, she began to see what humanity had seen, the potential. The strength that came from diversity. The power of many voices working toward one goal. Jenna Quinn led a team studying the ancient archives. They found traces of Forerunner technology, pieces of knowledge left behind. It was like humanity had known someone would eventually look for these clues, like they had wanted future generations to find them and learn. The technology was advanced beyond anything the galaxy had seen. But it was not impossible to understand. It required cooperation between different specialists. It required sharing insights and building on each other's work. It required exactly the kind of unity that humanity had been testing for. Years passed. The United Defense Initiative grew stronger. More species joined. Technologies advanced. Ships were built using designs that combined the best ideas from dozens of different civilizations. Weapons were created that no single species could have developed alone. And through it all, there was no word from humanity. They remained hidden in their other dimension, silent, watching perhaps, but not interfering. Lisa sometimes wondered if they were proud of what the galaxy had become, or if they were surprised, or if they were simply preparing for the coming war and had no time to think about anything else. 29 years after humanity's departure, the early warning systems detected something at the edge of the galaxy, something massive, something that absorbed all energy around it. The sensors could barely track it because it seemed to exist partially outside normal space. The Devourers had arrived early. The United Defense Fleet assembled. Thousands of ships from hundreds of species, all of them waiting for orders, all of them ready to fight for their survival. Lisa stood on the bridge of the flagship. She looked at the tactical display showing the approaching threat. It was vast beyond comprehension, and it was heading straight for the populated regions of the galaxy. She activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Captain Lisa Morgan. 29 years ago, humanity left us with a warning and a challenge. They told us we were not ready. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show them that we learned from our mistakes, that we grew stronger together.